floor, but now interrupted before I listened to him to give guidance. I wanted to give guidance to him after I listened, because I was not privy. Honorable senators, honorable senators, honorable senators, you cannot guide the chair on what to do. I don't have the advantage that I did not listen to that gentleman last night. So I was trying to get what he said about the majority leader. So let us get what he said.
Actually, what I'll do is that I'll bring. If somebody was to make such allegations about you, don't you owe it to even your own colleagues just to clear the air? And that's all I wanted to do. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to put it on record that number one, I don't work for KAA. Number two, I don't work for the Ministry of Transport. I don't know on what condition somebody can allege that I brokered a deal between Kenya and another foreign entity, whose owner, agents, I have never met, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have worked extremely hard in my public life to protect my image. Those who know me and have worked with me long enough can speak to my integrity as a person, Mr. Speaker. I don't do those kind of things. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as a country, as we call for new levels of accountability, Mr. Speaker, doesn't it behoove us that we behave better than those that we accuse of committing certain ills? You cannot fight corruption, Mr. Speaker, by character assassinating other citizens of your republic. That gentleman, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to put it straight to him that my lawyers will be reaching out to him. I have a name to protect, Mr. Speaker. It is in the interest of this House, Mr. Speaker, that they know that they are majority leader. That's why, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues who are here know that this matter has been on the floor of this House for quite a while. I have not spoken to a single person asking them to either consider that matter this or the other way, because I respect the business of this House, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I also ask myself, what happened to our media stations? If you go to the editorial policy of the BBC, you will read, Mr. Speaker, that they delay even their live broadcast, Mr. Speaker, so that in case somebody was to either malign somebody or say information which they cannot prove at that particular time, Mr. Speaker, it is regulated and edited out. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as I seek for justice for my name, Mr. Speaker, the media house that was used as well to soil my name will equally have to give an account. Mr. Speaker, I will be bringing a statement to this House on Tuesday on a personal matter, but in the meantime, even before that particular Tuesday, my lawyers will be reaching out to those particular people.
Majority Leader, you use standing order 58, to bring your personal statement. And since that a personal statement is never debated, even what you are saying to me should not be debated. Therefore, I really request, I now request Majority Leader, under Senator Sifuna. Under Senator Sifuna. Senator Majority Leader. Oh, no, sorry. Minority Leader. Senator Mazayo, can you make the comment on the statement? And Honorable Senators, 2 minutes are enough to make a comment on the statement.
Speaker, asante Bwana Speaker. Bwana Speaker, kitu cha kwanza nataka kukemea vikali vile ambavyo asante mstahiki Speaker. Mstahiki Speaker, jambo la kwanza nataka kusema ni kwamba ni kusikitisha zaidi, hususan ikiwa utatumia majina ambayo hakuna ushahidi ama hakuna taarifa yoyote yule mwingine aliweza kupewa. Kama ilikuwa inawezekana, pia yeye angewekwa katika TV wakawa wanajibishiana ili ikaonekana nani mkweli nani mrongo. Lakini kuchukua upande mmoja tu na kuweza kuweka katika taarifa na kuanza kushambulia upande mwingine si vizuri. Watu wengine, Bwana Spika, na wengi wetu ambao tuko hapa, ama wote ambao tuko hapa kama maseneta, ndugu yangu Kinywa ni mtu ametengeneza jina lake kule la kipya kwa miaka mingi, mpaka sasa amekuwa seneta. Bwana Spika, wewe mwenyewe pia kule Meru na wale ndugu zangu wote kule, umetengeneza jina lako kamili. Kwa hiyo jina leo mtu akikutaja kwa njia ubaya itakuwa ni makosa bila wewe kupewa nafasi ya kujibu. Kwa hiyo mimi nafikiria naungana na ndugu yangu Cheriot kwamba msemo kama huo wa kuharibiana majina si haki, na onyo zaidi liende kwa taarifa wanahabari. Mambo ya kuweza kuchukua upande mmoja na kuweza kulaumu upande mwingine pia si vizuri. Kwa upande wetu sisi tunakemea vikali na kwamba tusiweze kuchafuana majina, hususan wale wanaohusika katika kusambaza habari. Si jambo zuri katika taifa la Kenya leo kama mzee Chute anajulikana sana. Leo mzee Chute ajulikane kwa njia mbaya katika umri wake huu, itakuwa ni kumharibia maisha yake yote. Kwa hiyo kijana hivi sasa kama Cheriot
na Senator Tobiko uweze kutoa taarifa kidogo kwa ile
ndio naenda huko. Nilikuwa nataka
kwa hivyo naomba uende huko.
Nilikuwa nataka kusaidia. Ndio niko njiani, niko barabarani. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi barabara ndefu sana. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka kusema tu Bwana Spika, ya kwamba tunalaani vikali kitendo kama kile kilichotendea kwa ile taarifa ya habari. Nikirudi kwa upande ule mwingine, Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kusikitisha vile vile kuona ya kwamba katika Kenya hivi sasa kunakuwa na watu ambao wanavaa magwanda ya kujificha sura, alafu hatujui kama ni polisi ama ni majambazi. Sasa leo kama sisi, mtu akija kwako nyumbani haumjui ni nani, na ukitoka kwa gari unasikia watu wamekuvamia, wamekutoa. Tuliona hiyo wakati Charles Ketera akiwa ameshikwa. Alishikwa barabarani na alikuwa yeye ni mheshimiwa. Alfred Ketera alishikwa. Si jambo zuri kwa Mkenya ambaye yuko huru ndani ya Kenya kushikwa kiholela. Hususan nikija kwa upande ule wa dadangu sasa, yeye watu wake 3 wameshikwa na Wakenya wameenda kotini. Familia yake wameenda kotini wakidai wapendwa wao waachiliwe na polisi. Mpaka hivi leo tunavyoongea, hao vijana 3 bado hawajaachiliwa na polisi. Bwana Spika, kama ingekuwa ni mtoto wako, ingekuwa ni mtoto wangu, angekuwa ni mtoto wa Chute, angekuwa ni mtoto wa Khalwale, saa hizi familia hizi hazina raha ndani ya nyumba kwa kupotelewa na wapendwa wao. Na jambo la kusikitisha zaidi, hususan watoto wa
huyu mkubwa, dakika moja tu amalize.
Wanashikwa kila uchao na wakishikwa watoto hawa hawapatikani, ama wakipatikana wanapatikana wamekufa, wala hawezi kuachiliwa. Tunataka jambo hili likome, na hususan upande wa polisi waweze kuangalia kwamba wakishika mtu waweze kumpeleka kotini, wamshtaki, ili tujue kama jamii yake itamwekea mawakili, itamwekea namna gani ili aweze kurudi nyumbani, ama hata akifungwa atakuwa anafungwa kisheria. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante Senator Chelgei Samson.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. One, I always shudder in fear, especially when police allegedly abduct individuals, because I don't find any reason why the police should blur their numbers or wear unmarked or don't have registration numbers. So Speaker, I've been a victim, and I said yesterday, on several occasions, especially on Kamata Friday. And I remember one instance, I was sleeping alone when I was arrested. It is by God's grace that chair, Mr. Speaker, they tracked me from Kibosi in Kisumu County all the way to my palatial home in Mosoriat in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker. And I was arrested alone. And that day, Mr. Speaker, after naked, I was also naked. Mr. Speaker, and that is why we need to be very careful. As the former chair, Mr. Speaker, of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights, we did investigate enforced disappearance and unregulated abductions, Mr. Speaker. I want to challenge the police. If you are going for Senator Sifuna, Why don't you use official numbers, wear your uniform, identify yourself, Mr. Speaker, so that we can know. Even as we speak today, the MCA of Delaware Ward in Wajir County, Hussein Ahmed Yusuf, cannot be explained where he is. The people of Delaware Ward, even the family moved yesterday, Mr. Speaker, to court and demand that the Inspector General of Police produces the MCA Hussein Ahmed from Delaware Ward in Wajir County, Mr. Speaker. And we don't want the police to perpetuate a tribal attacking some particular communities in this country, Mr. Speaker. Because when you go to, I was appalled when I went to Kwale. I went into a meeting and met women, thousands of women without their husbands, Mr. Speaker, who police allegedly have abducted them in the guise of terrorism, Mr. Speaker. We must be honest as a country. Let us fight.
Next is Senator Manzo Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on issue of forced disappearance, before President Ruto became president, he said no more people will be found dead in the River Yala. We have now found people dead in Kware, and the worst thing which can happen, Mr. Speaker, to any family or to anybody who is a Kenyan, is that you disappear, your family makes an application for habeas corpus, it goes to the court, and then the court is not given the body, whether dead or alive. Then that, Mr. Speaker, becomes the end of that story for that family. It means then the family will never know where their kin are, and that is in the Department of the Executive, particularly the police, Mr. Speaker. I really want to urge the Acting Inspector General, Mr. Speaker, because he is aware. If he really wants to get away with this, because now he's been convicted by the court, then he should produce the bodies or produce the persons alive, and then we will purge the contempt and everything will go well. The moment you are contemptuous before a judge, you can only go back to that judge. And the only way to purge the contempt is to comply with the court order. So I'm really pleading with the acting IG, who I know is a Christian, even if he has been forced by other forces, to make sure these children are delivered, either dead or alive. It is an absurdity for the current government if these children are never going to be seen forever. And we have more disappearances coming up and more disappearances. Mr. Speaker, it is illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it is putting the government of Kenya, locally and internationally, in a very bad corner in terms of human rights. And Mr. Speaker, we have a very good constitution as a country, which if we adhere to, all Kenyans will be happy, no families will suffer because their dear ones have disappeared.
Senator John Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa Bwana Spika, kulingana na ripoti ambayo imeletwa na Senator Tobiko kuhusu watu kutekwa nyara, Bwana Spika, nataka kumwambia kwamba sasa kwa sababu mkuu wa polisi ameteuliwa rasmi, Douglas Kanja, anapaswa atokee kimasomaso aweze kupambana na haya mambo, Bwana Spika, na aweze kuyakomesha, kwa sababu Bwana Spika, kuna sheria zinapaswa kufuatwa. Kama mtu ametenda kosa, ashikwe, apelekwe kotini, aweze kuhukumiwa, Bwana Spika. Hakuna kosa ambalo haliwezi kupewa adhabu yake, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo hamna haja yoyote ya mtu yoyote, Bwana Spika. Tunapoongea hapa, Bwana Spika, mwakilishi wa wodi ya Dera, Bwana Spika, hajulikani aliko, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kwa sababu sasa tuko na askari mkuu ambaye ameteuliwa kirasmi, ana majukumu ambayo, Bwana Spika, anapaswa kuwa awe akiangalia. Si hiyo tu, Bwana Spika, ripoti ambayo taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Kanyuri, watu kuuawa kiholela, Bwana Spika. Na ni vizuri, Bwana Spika, watu wawe, kwa sababu kazi kuu ya serikali, Bwana Spika, ni kulinda mali na maisha ya wananchi, Bwana Spika. Itakuwa ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana, Bwana Spika, ikiwa watu wanauliwa kiholela, familia zao zinaendelea kusononeka na hapati jawabu, Bwana Spika, ya yale mambo ambayo wanayouliza, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, vile vile taarifa iliyoletwa na seneta wa kutoka Uasin Gishu kuhusu KCC, Bwana Spika, wakulima wanaendelea kusononeka kuuliza watapata malipo yao lini Bwana Spika, ilhali wanaendelea kupeleka maziwa yao katika KCC. Ukitembelea Nyahururu Bwana Spika, KCC kila wakati asubuhi na mapema watu wameleta maziwa yao, lakini wakati wa kupata malipo yao Bwana Spika inakuwa ni mchongoma Bwana Spika. Lakini
keep your eyes on the lights kindly to avoid the embarrassment. Senator Beatrice Akinyi Ogola.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to really condemn the defilement case that has been brought by my senior sister, Senator Catherine Muma. That is in Kigoto village of a young girl who was 13 years then. Honorable Speaker, Homa Bay County is fighting the triple threat led by His Excellency Governor Gladys Wanga and all the women leaders. But it's unfortunate that we have very pathetic numbers, Honorable Speaker. As I stand here, Honorable Speaker, in 2023, we had over 8,000 young adolescents between 10 years and 19 years that were presented as pregnant, Honorable Speaker. I support this statement, and I call for justice for the young girl and the young family. Honorable Speaker, I also want to condemn the abductions and the disappearances that have been brought forward by nominated Senator Perez Tobiko. It points to us that we have a system that is so fearful of its citizens, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, why should we have people disappearing in this country and they cannot be traced? What is so appalling in these cases, Honorable Speaker? As my colleagues have said, the government was so firm about disappearances that we had in the other years, but it's unfortunate that the scene only changed from a river in Yala to other points like the quarry that we had.
Senator Sigei Wakiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to commend and also condemn the position that has been played out in the statement by Senator Tobiko as well as Senator Catherine Muma. The two statements, Mr. Speaker, are seeking the intervention of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, particularly with regard to the disappearance and also the defilement of the young girl, respectively. I, Mr. Speaker, as chairperson of Justice and Legal Affairs, commit to support and undertake appropriate investigations to make sure that the House is also given sufficient information so that appropriate actions ultimately be taken to ensure that justice is served both to the girl and to the family of the gentleman who disappeared. Mr. Speaker, I support the two statements. Thank you.
Senator Sifuna Edwin.
Honorable Speaker, we all heard President Ruto during the campaigns tell the country that under his administration, abductions and disappearances of persons and extrajudicial killings would be a thing of the past. We continue to hear him say that his is a government that observes the rule of law. Honorable Speaker, as we speak today, the acting Inspector General of Police has been convicted and is subject to a 6-month jail term just because he's been instructed by his superiors not to honor court summons to appear to explain the disappearance of Bob Njagi, somebody that I know personally, Jamil Langton and Aslam Langton. Honorable Speaker, there is nobody who can be happy to live in a country such as this. And you can hear from both sides of the House, no one can support these happenings in our country. Just across the border in Dar es Salaam, the police plucked somebody, an opposition leader from the Chadema party, from a moving bus in the full glare of the public. And the guy in hours turned up dead, Honorable Speaker, and his face has been disfigured by acid. We cannot be spoken to in the same terms as countries like Tanzania. Even this young MCA from Wajir was plucked from the streets of Nairobi. So, Honorable Chair, we would want that we all as leaders take a very strong position and ask William Ruto. We will not ask you about the other promises you break. Even if you don't build us the roads and the stadiums you promised us, please stop killing us. Stop abducting people and bodies showing up in quarries. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, it is the responsibility of government to protect life and limb, and every disappearance must be explained by none other than William Ruto. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Number 105 on statement of fact. And for my good friend Senator Sifuna to understand it, because it's clear he doesn't understand the standing orders. 105.1, a senator shall be responsible for the accuracy of any facts that the senator alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. You have heard Senator Sifuna allege that William Ruto, the President of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is killing Kenyans. Can he substantiate that claim, Mr. Speaker? Failure to which he withdraws, apologizes, Mr. Speaker, and that statement be expunged from the records of this House, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna, you have been accused that your statement is bordering on some allegations.
Honorable Speaker, it's like the majority leader met me yesterday. I will stand by the truth without fear. It is the responsibility of government to protect the life of Kenyans. It is public knowledge that these people are being abducted by police officers. It is his government. So he cannot run away from the responsibility. Who are we supposed to ask? Samia Suluhu. He is the person responsible for the protection of the lives of Kenyans, and he is the one we will ask. I will not be intimidated on this.
Senator Sifuna, the issue is, you mentioned that...
Let him read back what I said. I said his government is responsible for the killing of Kenyans. Yes. So you can refer back to the Hansard.
Okay.
I know what I said. I know what I said. You cannot speak for me.
Because
you cannot speak for me
in this House.
Yeah. Go back to the Hansard.
I will request for the answer.
Correct.
During the next sitting. Because... What? On the members. When there is a dispute, when there is, that answer can be produced. Listen, honorable senators, Senator Sifuna, what I'm saying is, before the end of this sitting, that answer should be produced before me. Next is Senator Roba. Okay. Senator Nyonka. Senator Sifuna, now you risk.
Thank you.
Kindly restrain yourself from making.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like my colleagues to sometimes go and listen to American political analysts, what they talk about Joe Biden. They used to call him Crooked Joe. They call Trump an abuser, a rapist. Sometimes we just need to be honest with ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to say something to my colleagues in this House. And I'm not pontificating, it's just my reality. I feel, because of the issues that I've been raising, I could be abducted. And I am not anti-government. What I am saying is that our country deserves better. We can run this country. President William Ruto can continue to govern this country, and he can even win the coming elections if he did the basic things that Kenyans want. Please, let us not kill our young people. It is only in Latin America when drug dealers and warlords organize for certain individuals who disagree with them to assassinate or abduct people, to violate women's rights. I am begging my colleagues, in fact, I am begging the President of the Republic of Kenya, President William Ruto, the history of this country will never forgive you if these abductions continue. If individuals have extrajudicial killings where they are murdered because they have a different political opinion or where they are questioning government policy and decisions, let us not think this is the reason why the young men went to the streets. They felt that we were not doing our job. Our job is to tell them.
Senator Omar Sheikh Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, in the Constitution of Kenya, there is a right to life. And life starts on conception. Mr. Speaker, if we continue like this, abducting, extrajudicial, extra killing, Mr. Speaker, there is no democracy in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, how can we explain to the new family of MCA of Wajir? How can we explain to a kid who is now 2 years old? Mr. Speaker, we need justice in every part of the Kenya. Mr. Speaker, if Kenya goes like this, what's the difference between Kenya and Somali? Where do we live? And Kenya is home. Mr. Speaker, we need a safe place to take care of our kids, to take care of our properties. Mr. Speaker, let's follow the rule of law. If somebody is, human being is to error. If somebody is to error, there is rule of law, there is court. Take the person to the court, convict, Mr. Speaker. But 6 days, 7 days, where is the MCA? How can we explain to the parents? How can we explain to the his mother, who is old mama? She cannot understand this is.
Senator Abbas Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues also. And I want to thank all the members for standing with the people of Wajir.
Senator Sifuna, I just gave you and gave Onyonka same.
Honorable Speaker, as it has been said already, I want to join. Honorable Speaker, please protect me. I'm losing my time.
Honorable members, the MCA from Wajir comes from Wajir County. And that
Honorable
is
Speaker, for the first thing, I want to join the family of Honorable Hussein, Yusuf Hussein Mohammed, the MCO of Dela, who has been missing for the last 7 days. I want to share with their sufferings, their fears, and the absence of their loved ones. It's actually very painful to miss your most loved person without any communication or anything. Honorable Speaker, it's very unfortunate. This country is going back to the days of in the 90s and where we came from. We thought we have moved forward. Last time the president has promised us that there will be no extrajudicial killings, no abductions, no nothing. But now we are seeing a very funny thing going on now. Honorable, when the IG is not responding to the courts when it's been summoned, that's impunity of the highest order. And that's why they're able to take people anyhow they want. They want to do what they want to do. There are so many people who are missing Kenyans today. Kenyans still have the right to live. Every life is actually sanctioned. It is a right. People must be produced to court. People must be listened. What the law says, I'm not a lawyer, but it says that everybody is innocent unless proven guilty.
Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support the statement by Senator Kavindu on 100% transition to secondary and tertiary institutions. Mr. Speaker, it is desirous that all the children achieve education, and Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is a signatory to Article 26 of the 1948 Declaration on Human Rights and the right to education. However, Mr. Speaker, this has been impeded by very many reasons. And Mr. Speaker, for as long as the funding of secondary education and tertiary education is dependent on CDF, then we are not likely to meet the 100% transition. Mr. Speaker, the CDF has been given in a discriminatory manner, and for as long as that CDF is patronized by MPs, and if you don't vote an MP, Mr. Speaker, then you don't get the bursaries, then we're not going to achieve 100% transition, and most of these children are going to fall by the wayside. Mr. Speaker, right now we have junior secondary, and junior secondary is not financed through CDF. There are very many children that are falling by the wayside because JSS is being charged, or fees are being charged, and we don't have CDF really funding JSS. So we need to look for a modality of financing even JSS, because we lose very many children at JSS level. Mr. Speaker, the new funding model that is not very clear, that is financing higher education. We have people who have been put at very high bands, and they'll also not be able to achieve university and tertiary education. And what
Senator Alexander Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika, naunga mkono taarifa ambaye imeletwe na Senator Mandango ya kuhusu wakulima mambo ya maziwa. Nataka kuunga mkono wale watu wataenda kuchunguza, waangalie vizuri, kwa sababu wakulima aswa watu wa Embu County, Sub County Runyenje na Manyata wanalima mambo ya maziwa, inaleta shinda. Unakuta wamefanya kazi ngumu, lakini mambo ya malipo imeleta shinda. Pia nikiunga mkono, tunakumbuka wakulima wale wafanyikazi walikuwa wanafanya kazi kwa hiyo kampuni ya maziwa kutoka zamani miaka 30 hawajalipwa, na sasa tunasikia new KCC sasa inataka kuleta mambo ingine ya kupeleka hiyo kampuni kwa watu. Ningeomba wale wataenda kufanya uchunguzi waangalie vizuri, ndio wakulima waweze kufaidika, kwa sababu wameumia sana. Nikimalizia, nataka niambie Senator wa Nairobi, tukiwa hapa maseneta, ni afadhali tuwe na heshima kwa serikali, kwa sababu tuko kwa serikali ya muungano, na kama senator mzima hawezi kuheshimu rais wa Kenya, nataka kuambia Senator wa Nairobi, rais sio William Ruto, anaitwa Rais Samuel William Ruto, sio kumtanja jina tu, lakini sasa kuja kutuambia majina mpaka mwesimu. Kesho utakuwa mtu mwingine. Jana tulisikia utambui hata wale watu wengine, utambui hata kama ni secretary. Ni aibu kubwa sana. Kwa hiyo Senator wa Nairobi, rafiki wangu, mpaka uwe ukiheshimu wale watu wengine, kwa sababu wakati mwingine wewe ndio utakuwa pale juu. Kama hauna heshima, utaheshimiwa na nani? Ndugu yangu, sauli yako. Kwa hivyo mheshimu. Next time tunakutafutia kiti kubwa ukunje kwa serikali ya muungano. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, the statement hour is past gone. Honorable Senators, as you may recall, at the morning sitting of the Senate held yesterday, Wednesday, 18th September 2024, I directed Senator Perez Tobiko MP to substantiate utterances made in the course of a contribution on a supplementary question to the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transportation. The direction arose out of a point of order by the Senator for Senegishu County, Senator Transaction Mandago MP, pursuant to Standing Order 1052. Standing Order 105 provides that 1, a senator shall be responsible for the accuracy of any facts that the senator alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. And 2, if a senator has sufficient reason to convince the Speaker that the Senator is unable to substantiate the allegations instantly, the Speaker shall require that such Senator substantiates the allegations not later than the next sitting day, failure to which the Senator shall be deemed to be disorderly within the meaning of Standing Order 121, which is disorderly conduct. Unless the Senator withdraws the allegations and gives us a suitable apology if the Speaker so requires. So, Honorable Senators, in the point of order by Senator Jackson Mandago, MP, Senator Perez Tobiko, MP, was required to substantiate the claim that a rogue, and I quote, a rogue public servant has gone on record publicly to say that this road will never be constructed as long as the current Member of Parliament, MP for Kajiado South, Honorable Parashina, is the MP. These utterances were made by the State House Controller. End of quotes. Honorable Senators, Senator Perez Tobiko was not able to substantiate our statements as required pursuant to Standing Order 1051, and subsequently requested the Speaker to provide the evidence at the next sitting day in accordance with Standing Order 1052. Having acceded to the request, I directed that the Senator substantiates the allegations at the next sitting day. Pursuant to Standing Order 1052, I now invite Senator Perez Tobiko, MP, to forthwith substantiate the claims as raised in the point of order by Senator Jackson Mandago, MP, failure to which the Senator shall be deemed to be disorderly within the meaning of Standing Order 121. In the absence of such substantiation, the Senator will be required to withdraw the statements and apologize to the Senate. I thank you. Senator Tobiko, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would also have loved that you informed the House that I'm the one who has come to remind you that I had evidence to table. And I was very eager to do that, Mr. Speaker. And so I didn't want it to be forgotten.
Tobiko, you're out of order.
No.
I understand exactly at 4:01 you are to do the statement. You're out of order, Senator Mazayo. What is it? Why are you making noise? Let Senator Tobiko be handed in silence. Absolute silence.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, because I was eager to table, and hereby, Mr. Speaker, I'm now ready to table. The same, I have a video.
Proceed and table.
Yes.
Next order. So, Senator Tobiko, your evidence will be reviewed to see, to ascertain whether it meets the threshold of an evidence. So that will not be done right away, because this is a video, I can see, this is your evidence, it's here. So you don't have the gadgets to do it now. Next order. Can you call to the next order, kindly? Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, Senator Mundigi, Minority Leader, Senator Mundigi, Minority Leader, Onda. So, Honorable Senators, we are rearranging the Onda paper. So, from Onda number 8, 9 up to 14, all those the fund, and now we go to Order number 15.
Order number 15, the National Disaster Risk Management Bill, National Assembly Bills number 24 of 2023, resumption of debate interrupted on Wednesday, 18th September 2024, afternoon sitting.
It was on the floor. Yeah. So, Senator Mulgo, you earned a balance of 11 minutes. If you are ready, you can proceed and utilize 11 minutes. If you are done, then we can give another senator to proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was interrupted when I was contributing, and I was saying that there are activities that we run as human beings that contribute very much to the disasters that we run into and that make life difficult for us. For example, cutting of trees has made some portions of land to be barren and bare, so that there is no trees that hold good soil and also hold grass to grow along rivers and along escarpments and so on. And so because we have cut down trees, that makes the soil to be soft and loose, and when it is soaked with water, it just runs downstream or down the escarpments and so on, and therefore down below the escarpment or below the river, it just causes or cause devastating situations and problems to those who live downstream or below the hills. And therefore, there is need to make our people aware that some of the contributions that we make that become negative should be avoided, so that we can live in peace and in harmony and in an environment that is safe for us, rather than cutting trees and just making the land be bare. And there is also need to train our people. We have, as somebody said yesterday, we have a lot of graduates and engineers that can be involved in making our people aware as to how to conserve soil and to conserve forests and nature, so that these disasters that happen will not be as frequent as they are today in our time, and also to make people know and be aware how to plant and conserve forests. Forests now are really nearly depleted because of lack of knowledge that people do not know how to take care of trees. I was talking to somebody that is in charge of seedlings a few days ago, and he said that they were ready to distribute.
Order, honorable members.
So he said that they were ready to distribute over
250,000.
Senator Mtata and Senator Eddy, please listen to the senator in silence, please.
So to distribute more than 250 seedlings that are ready to be planted. But he said the sad point about it is that people will take seedlings and just place them anyhowly or plant and not really take care of them. So he said he is saddened that all the seedlings might not really have the chance to become trees. And therefore, where it's supposed to be planted and grow to be trees will still remain bare and without trees to hold the soil and to hold the soil that can make grass grow. And therefore, there is a lot of need for skills and then also the carefulness that we need to have, especially on taking care of materials and supplies that we get to be able to attend to situations that have become disastrous, such as maybe foodstuffs and blankets and mattresses and so on. When it happens, we need to have a culture and develop a habit of taking care of such to be able to attend to the needs of our people when disaster happens. We need to be faithful and be trustworthy people on behalf of our people and also on behalf of those who have donated, so that donations are given and put into trusted hands that will make sure that it reaches the people that deserve it. So I support. Thank you.
Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to rise to support this bill on national disaster and risk management, Madam Speaker. And as I add my voice to this, I want to particularly draw the attention of the House onto what is a national disaster, Madam Speaker. If you look at page 3 of that bill, they have actually explained that a disaster means a progressive or sudden, widespread, localized, natural, or human-caused occurrence which causes or threatens to cause death, injury, or disease, or a significant disruption of the life of a community, Madam Speaker. As I support this bill, for me, I want to talk about disasters that nobody talks about, Madam Speaker. When it comes to the issue of women, when it comes to the issue of the challenges that women of Kenya are going through, nobody wants to pay attention to it, Madam Speaker. And as I support this bill on the national disaster management, Madam Speaker, I want to draw to the public, to get the attention of the public on matters gender-based violence, Madam Speaker. Because we continue to turn aside, we continue to ignore. Madam Speaker, even on the statements that have been read today, they have touched on several disasters, national disasters, Madam Speaker.
Senator Gloria,
yes?
What you're speaking to is important, but the business of today is disaster management. So the disaster management bill. So if you want to place context and put it in the bill, please situate it in the bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand guided. That's why I went back to the bill to look at what the bill is defining as a disaster, Madam Speaker. And my voice, which I want to add on to this bill, is to ask the proposer or those who are fronting this bill, because I know that it has come from the National Assembly, Madam Speaker, is that we have a clarity of the definition of a national disaster, Madam Speaker, because all the regulations that we are putting here, all the committees and the structures of the funds and how these resources should be placed, the resiliency plans and what we are supposed to do when we are managing the national disaster, Madam Speaker, I really don't think that they speak to all the disasters that we have, Madam Speaker. And my point here is that at what point will we actually, as a community and as a country, understand that some of the things that are happening in this country, the same way we have spoken very passionately about the disappearances of and the extrajudicial killings, to an extent that they are causing death, injury, or disease, or a significant disruption of the life of the community, Madam Speaker. I also want to add there that when we are drawing these regulations or these committees or these things, we must also understand that disasters are not only limited to floods or limited to fires or limited to certain things, because as they have put it here in the definition, a disaster also means that it is a progressive or a sudden widespread of localized natural or human-caused occurrences, Madam Speaker. And the issue of gender-based violence, Madam Speaker, and I wish Senator Cherargei, who is being distracted by Senator Mariam, would listen, because this is a very important point. On the issue of gender-based violence, Madam Speaker, and the femicide and the things that we continue to see and bring as statements, this should and actually be declared by the President as a national disaster, Madam Speaker. Because the definition is there. It is causing a significant disruption of the life of the community, Madam Speaker. So when all of these regulations are being placed here, Madam Speaker, my question is, and the voice that I'm adding to this bill is, are we really thinking through all the natures or all the characteristics of what we are calling a national disaster? Madam Speaker, a simple example, when you go to how we are proposing to deal with the disaster risk reduction, Madam Speaker, it does not speak to some of the disasters that we're experiencing, Madam Speaker. You know, we have had so many incidences of delayed justice based on disasters, Madam Speaker. The issue of the gender-based courts, Madam Speaker, severally we have gone on record and asked that the Chief Justice actually allocates a timing such that most of these GBV-related cases are prosecuted within 6 months, Madam Speaker. But when I go to read on the proposals on how we are dealing with disaster management, then I beg to ask my fellow colleagues here, are we actually thinking through a widespread that disaster it's not limited to floods and fires, Madam Speaker. Disasters that we are experiencing in this country, as the women of Kenya, are also disasters of femicide. And that is what I'm trying to say, Madam Speaker. And we must be able, as women who are representing women in this Senate, we must be able to speak the truth and represent the women on what we are going through. Madam Speaker, to move on from that, Madam Speaker, if you read that the bill, it says that the objective of this act is to provide for a legislative framework for disaster risk management. It's to enhance the effectiveness and the coordinated disaster preparedness prevention response, and to reduce disaster risks and vulnerabilities at the national and the county levels, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question then to the proposer of this bill is, while we are setting up the committees, the funds, the regulations, are we really thinking about the big constituency of women and girls who end up being victims of many of the natural disasters that we have in this country, Madam Speaker? So I'd like to encourage that the proposers of this bill do not limit our thinking to fires and floods and natural calamities such as climate change and all sorts of things, but to also think of the disasters that are pushed by human interaction, disasters that are created by human beings, and those disasters are here with us. Every day we speak on them in form of statements, and I want to particularly highlight the disaster, the national disaster of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and femicide. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the bill.
Senator Moses Kajwang.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Disaster Risk Management Bill that is before the House. And Madam Speaker, yesterday I listened to the Senator for Migori, who is also my party leader because he's a secretary for disaster in the ODM party. And Madam Speaker, Senator Eddie Okech did a wonderful job in the wake of the recent floods, where he mobilized resources, he mobilized well-wishers to go around to support those who were affected by the floods. However, Senator Eddie yesterday spoke strongly against this bill. And today I want to encourage him and other members of the Senate to have a different view of this bill. The situation we have in the country is that disaster risk management has been scattered all over the place. We've got a national disaster risk management policy of 2017. This policy places responsibility for disaster risk management in the hands of a national disaster risk management unit. This unit falls in the Ministry of Interior and was established through an executive order in August 2013. The policy also delegates that function to a National Disaster Operations Center established in 1998. It goes ahead to provide or assign responsibility to the National Drought Management Authority, established by an Act of Parliament. At the Ministry of Defense, in line with the constitutional provision that the Kenya Defense Forces can be called upon to respond to disasters, there is a disaster response battalion. Madam Speaker, then there is a Kenya Red Cross Society, established by an Act of Parliament, Cap 256 of 1965, which has been placed right in the center of disaster response in this country. And sometimes when we speak about the Kenya Red Cross Society, people think that this is a foreign organization. People think that it is an NGO, yet it is established by the laws of Kenya. And so it means that county governments, when they contract the Red Cross Society, it's a government-to-government procurement rather than a government-to-business procurement. Madam Speaker, you cannot then place a finger on who is responsible for disaster risk management in this country. In the office of the Deputy President, there are bags of beans and bags of maize and bags of rice, which are distributed whenever there are floods across the country. And Madam Speaker, for those of us who have seen these bags of rice being distributed, the means of distribution is more expensive than the items that are being distributed. I have seen flood victims in the areas of Nyakach, in the areas of Osodo in Karachuonyo constituency, people flying in using state helicopters and army helicopters to distribute a plate or a dish of rice or a dish of beans. And so, when the Senate in the 11th and 12th Parliament made a proposition that we needed to have better coordination within this disaster space, Madam Speaker, I recall that it must have been Senator Mutula Kilonzo and perhaps Senator Sakaja, who is now in Nairobi City County, who was spearheading this bill. This bill collapsed simply because the other house considered it to be a money bill. There was no other reason. And this is why today, if this bill has originated from the other house, we are happy to support it, of course, with the necessary amendments. As we support and speak to this bill, we must remember that disaster management is a concurrent function. The fourth schedule assigns that function to both national and county government. And therefore, we cannot have legislation and we cannot have entities or new creations that then take away the role of county governments. Madam Speaker, Kenya is a signatory to the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction. It means that we have signed up to certain international obligations that require us to streamline, to put in place legislation, and to adopt best practices on disaster risk management. Disasters in this country have caused untold suffering. It is very rare for the school calendar to be affected by disasters. In living history, Madam Speaker, perhaps the other time that the school calendar was disrupted was during the 1982 coup. After that, The next time the school calendar was adversely affected was during COVID. The third time the school calendar was affected because of a disaster was Hurricane Adai. Madam Speaker, it was not too long ago. I think it affected the reopening of the second term, where everyone was holding their breath to see how that man-made hurricane or cyclone that was supposed to hit the coastal part of Kenya, how it was going to play out. And we thank God that God was good to us, that the intensity of the cyclone reduced out in the high seas, and that we are not affected. Those are the grand disasters that sometimes people think about. But disasters can manifest in the form of fire. It could be fire that has burnt down shops in a marketplace. Madam Speaker, in Rodikopany town, in Homa Bay County, a few weeks ago, fire razed down a number of shops belonging to small-scale business people. Even though the county government attempted to respond by sending fire engines, the fire engines ran out of water and extinguishing materials, and it was quite an embarrassment because they had to be refilled. And by the time they were refilled, the fire had already done what we feared it should not do. Disasters can represent itself in the form of flooding, Madam Speaker. The flooding that affects my people every rainy season. Every rainy season, Madam Speaker, we are heading to the area of Karachuonyo, bringing in aid, bringing in support and assistance. We find families that have been chased from their homes because their homes have been flooded. You are finding in-laws, you are finding parents and children, adult men and female daughters sleeping on the floor of a classroom. You are finding people set up in camps without proper sanitation, without food, without medication, without protection against the mosquitoes that obviously are there whenever it floods. Madam Speaker, recently when the President came to my region, we made it clear that to avoid this annual disaster, to avoid this annual flooding, the solution is simple. Build dams upstream. And the colonial government identified the areas where these dams should be. One dam should be in the area of Magwagwa in Nyamira County. Dam the area, control the flow of water. When you've got a dam, you can generate electricity. When you've got a dam, you can do irrigation. You can create employment so that you don't have to send our children out of the country to do manual jobs. Those are some of the things we were discussing yesterday, Madam Speaker, as far as job creation is concerned. We challenge the President. Set up the next dam in Konoin or up the hills of Kericho, because it is the floods that come from the hills of Kericho that then affect the people of Kisumu County. The rains that come from the Magwagwa area affects the people of Homa Bay County. The solutions are simple. The solutions have been quantified. The designs have been done. And all that is needed is a government that can prioritize the needs and the lives of the people of that region. But because you have did that and continue to procrastinate from independence to date, every year, Madam Speaker, we've got a disaster. I want to call these man-made disasters. I don't want to call them natural disasters anymore, because God has given us the wisdom, the knowledge, and the foresight on what to do to prevent them. Madam Speaker, this bill proposes that we collapse all those other entities that I've talked about so that we've got one national disaster risk management authority. And yesterday, the majority leader and the majority whip were commenting that we are creating a new entity. But a proper reading of this bill and the reports that the House has done in the past is that we are collapsing the various desks, units, operation centers, and authorities that have been vested with that responsibility into one for better coordination, for efficiency, and for synergies. It is for that reason that I support this bill. Madam Speaker, the bill also makes provisions for county disaster risk management committees to be chaired by the county governors, and part of those who will be sitting in those committees is the county commissioner. On this, we need to be very careful. Sometimes, through national legislation, we have come up with structures and proposals for county governments, but these structures end up not working. Madam Speaker, You recall the conversation at the Devolution Donor Working Group earlier today. One participant said that sometimes we legislate at the national level and tell counties to establish committees, and those committees never work. The County Policing Authority, which was established by national legislation, has never been actualized to date. The county education boards, and Madam Speaker, this is a painful bit, that through legislation, the Basic Education Act, we established the county education boards. Most county education boards across the country are understaffed, they are underfunded, and they are not effective in any form or shape. I do recall, Madam Speaker, in Homa Bay County, the inaugural chair of the County Education Board was a very distinguished educationist, a lady called Mrs. Roslyn Onyuka, who had become a provincial education officer, who had been a principal of many schools, and I'm sure that even here in Parliament, a number of the ladies in Parliament are her proteges. She was made the chair of the County Education Board, given no funding, given no budgetary support, and she had to resign out of frustration. The reason why I bring these parallels is that we are creating a county disaster risk management committee through this bill. And if you are not careful, it will go the direction of the county education boards, the county environment committees, the county policing oversight authorities. I have seen a few county governments that have come up with county disaster risk management laws. What we need to do is to ensure that when we make national legislation, we do not make it too prescriptive for county governments. Let us make it descriptive so that county governments can then come up with their own legislation to ensure that they do what is useful and what is possible in their areas. The disaster management committees must be agile. They cannot be bureaucracies, because a disaster strikes sometimes when least expected. In the definition of disasters, there are those that can be foreseen, but there are those that come when least expected. You therefore do not need a strong bureaucracy. You therefore do not need committees where the proceedings are guided by normal rules of procedure to manage disaster issues in counties. In Nairobi City County, when the governor appeared before the Committee of Public Accounts, there had just been a fire incident in Gikomba Market. Madam Speaker, in Nairobi, it has become ritual also that there'll be fire in Toi Market, there will be fire in Gikomba Market, and yet the amount of money that we collect from Toi Market and Gikomba Markets is sufficient to acquire firefighting equipment and to support a disaster management unit in this city. But the traders in those markets never see that service come back to them, even after they've faithfully paid their dues on a daily basis. The Nairobi County Disaster Risk Management Act provided that the disaster committee would be chaired by the deputy governor. And it made very elaborate and clear provisions on how it ought to be run. It even included incorporation of the local elected leadership in Nairobi. Unfortunately, when the governor appeared before my committee and we put him to task, it emerged that even in his response to the fire incidences in Nairobi, he never convened the disaster committee. In his defense, he brought us a memorandum that he had written arguing that the law was defective. But, Madam Speaker, we must deal with the law as it is, rather than the law as it ought to be. We recall we dismissed the governor and directed that if he is dissatisfied with the law that was validly passed by the County Assembly of Nairobi, he should sponsor amendments, but in the absence of amendments, he must therefore ensure that the County Disaster Committee is in place. And Nairobi is too important, Madam Speaker, for important instruments like a County Disaster Committee to be run at the whims of a governor. And I would like to, even as I support this bill, Madam Speaker, on the part of county disaster committees, I hope that the relevant committee will look at the other legislations that various county governments have already passed, have already enacted, to ensure that what we are proposing is going to make sense to their operations. Madam Speaker, even as we speak, I want to challenge you to dial 999. When I was growing up in Nairobi, we knew that 999 was a number that you'd call when you're in problems. If you are faced by muggers, call 999. If there is fire, call 999. If thieves break into your house, call 999. Anything, call 999. I don't know if you call 999 today, what you're going to get. And that shows you the kind of breakdown that we have in our disaster risk and response strategies. Madam Speaker, if we are going to be serious about this matter of disaster management, firefighting the national government should not leave that responsibility wholly to county governments. I know in the 4th schedule, it is assigned to county governments. But even housing is assigned to county governments, and the president is going around the country launching houses. Water is a function of national governments, and the president is going around launching water projects. What is special about firefighting? Why do we want to leave this responsibility with its huge budgetary and coordination mechanisms to county governments? I want to challenge the national government that in as much as this is a county function, the Intergovernmental Relations Act requires the national government to support county governments in areas where county governments might not have the capacity. Finally, Madam Speaker, there is something we need to clean up in this bill. It talks about a national state of disaster, that the president can declare a national state of disaster. The wording is different from what is in the Constitution. The Constitution talks of a national state of emergency. Now, a national state of emergency, under Article 58, the president can only declare it through parliamentary approval. What is this other thing called national state of disaster that the president can then use to curtail movements and to curtail the Bill of Rights, because it is not subject to approval by Parliament? And so, Madam Speaker, we need to be careful that we do not introduce another state of emergency and call it a state of disaster in this bill. Madam Speaker, I hope that the committee will bring their report so that we make an informed decision on the issues and areas that need to be amended to ensure that this bill is fit for purpose.
What's your point of order, Senator Eddy?
A Kenyan who is some of them call themselves Gen Zs, and they have very, very important points and very important input that can help our country to grow. So if we enhance such platforms, it can help us to have a one country that we bring together all the thoughts and ideas from members of our public. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, is that members of parliament here, we are around 400 here. And if we can enhance the social media reporting, whereby a member of parliament like me from Keyo North, I can be able to see what's happening in Madira, in the other sides of Ugunja, and that one can help us in terms of challenging ourselves in economic growth and also development in our respective constituencies. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is that we must enhance this way of technology because it saves time, it cuts costs in terms of paperwork, and also time in delivering in our mandate. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge maybe Parliamentary Service Commission that we support, especially the Committee on Broadcasting and Library Services, on implementing its recommendation. Today we are here, but we are still using around 80% of our transmission using KBC. But there is a young person in the upcountry. People are in universities. They want to know what is happening, and they want real-time information. So this young person will not be able to stay there, wait for some 9 p.m. news to be broadcast. Perhaps they will capture 1 or 2 members, but they will not get what is happening in the entire house. I therefore support the motion, and I say to the committee, that is a good work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Naomi Wako, MP Marsabit.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate on enhancing reporting of parliamentary business online platforms. Honorable Speaker, we know very well during COVID time, we were forced to use most of the time to use online meetings, to have online meetings, and also conduct our businesses online. That really helped us and saved the situation. Today, the world is moving very fast, and some of us are still analog, but many people are digital. And that is why we need to move as members of parliament so that most of our businesses can be transacted through online platform. Honorable Speaker, we know again when we have our committee meetings where members deal with issues that affect our people at the grassroots level, when the different committees handle different matters that really touches on the lives of Kenyans, a lot of our debate or our discussions are not covered. But when this happens, then our people will be able to follow the progress and see even some of the things that we discuss at the national level on their behalf. Today we might say that the people in the villages have no time or have no TVs, but you'll be surprised even in the far north, everybody knows what happens, even in America today. So it is high time for us to approve this and go online in terms of our businesses so that our people can be educated through our debates, through our deliberations, and they can also see the resolutions we make as they wait for the different state departments to take action and also take the services to them. And with those few remarks, I support this. Thank you.
MP Yatta, followed by the MP for the Greater South, and Honorable John Kiragu of Limuru after the MP for the Greater South. Proceed, MP for Yatta.
MP Yatta, yes, Basil. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor, and allow me to thank the Chair for Parliamentary Committee for Broadcasting and Library for bringing this motion. Truly, Mr. Speaker, we're in the exponential age, that is technology age. Today, everyone is Instagram, Twitter, and many other platforms. So ideally, Mr. Speaker, by having this motion, it means majority of our people will be able to access information online. Mr. Speaker, very importantly, through this motion, we'll make ourselves more transparent and make people understand what Parliament does very well. Mr. Speaker, this is going to enhance accountability because our people will be able to access information online, Mr. Speaker. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, through online platform, Mr. Speaker, our people and our citizens will be able to connect very well with the Parliament, because today, as we speak, many of our people, particularly people who are not in the house or who are not very much able to read or watch media, are not able to access what is being discussed in Parliament through or electronically. And through enhancing online platform, we'll make sure these people will be able to access these reports and will be able to know what this business or what August House does and what issues are pertinent to them and how they need to connect with this information, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of the flaws that I witnessed with this particular motion includes marginalizing the rural people, particularly because most of them are not have limited access to internet. A lack of reliable internet in the rural areas will discriminate these people and make them not be able to access online information as we intend or as we want them to do. Mr. Speaker, another important element that we need to consider, and which I find as a flaw in regard to this motion, it involves people who are computer illiterate. We know in our country we have a significant proportion of our people who are not computer savvy, and these people will not be able to access the online information or reports that comes from Parliament. And this serves as a flaw or a flip side when it comes to this particular motion. Importantly, I'm looking at the costs that will be involved when you are talking of upgrading our online infrastructure to be able to compete with the rest of the world. So the cost involved is something to consider, because in principle, Mr. Speaker, our economy is not performing well. I know the government approach is the bottom-up government has a very ambitious plan to connect most of our regions through the digital superhighway, which is something which we encourage, but our concern is the cost involved and also looking at where we are when it comes to the performance of the economy. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, as someone who is also looking at my categorization, a millennial, and someone who fits well within the line or within the contemporary world of technology, I do support the motion. Because remember, as I said, the world is moving to technology, and we can all attest to this, because if you look at most of the members who are here, they have smartphones. So this is to tell you, yes, I support the motion, and we have to consider the flaws that I've said so that we don't discriminate people contrary to Article 10 of the Constitution, which encourages for inclusivity when it comes to governance, including information sharing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, I support.
The Honourable MP for the Greater South.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. And communicators tell us that if you do not tell your story the way you would want to tell it, someone will tell your story the way you would not want it to be told. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I do stand to support this report on enhancing the reporting on parliamentary business on online platforms, Mr. Speaker. And I'm informed by Article 118 of the Constitution that says that parliamentary business, Mr. Speaker, must be open, and the proceedings of Parliament, whether they're in plenary or committee, must be done in public. And so, Mr. Speaker, if the world is moving towards newer methods of communicating, then Parliament is moving in the right direction by onboarding its communication to the online platforms. Mr. Speaker, this gives Parliament an opportunity for public participation. And I see my very good friend, the Honorable George Koimburi, in the House. And he, just as I know, we both know the dangers that Parliament runs into when we do not communicate our story the way we would, as we witnessed during the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, whereby some issues that had been canvassed outside this House, which were not in the bill, ended up becoming an issue that was a matter of life and death. Mr. Speaker, the failure here was not on any member who said yes or no. There was a big failure on how we communicated as Parliament. In communication, we say that the way to communicate is that there is a message, there is a channel, and there is a receiver, and then there is a mechanism loop to ensure that the receiver has received the message, so that if the message is not correct, it can be corrected so that you communicate effectively. As it is, Mr. Speaker, Parliament is speaking in platforms where Kenyans are not, and Kenyans are speaking in spaces where Parliament is not at. That is why today Parliament is one of the biggest punching bags. It's a boogeyman of this country. Mr. Speaker, this limited visibility that Parliament has been enjoying is not favorable for any member of Parliament. Even if Parliament seems so unpopular, I can tell you the ladies and gentlemen seated in this House are actually very popular in their constituencies. Otherwise, they would not be here. So it means that Parliament needs to reorganize the way it is engaging the different publics to give them the right information so that the popularity that these members have on the ground can be translated to the institution of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I went through this report with a fine-tooth comb, and I saw that it is recommending for us to review the existing platforms of Parliament. It is recommending for us to develop guidelines that will allow for us to have even communication officers in our different constituencies so that they can feed into the content generation of the news that Parliament will be putting out there. I saw this report recommending something critical, Mr. Speaker. It is recommending that our Parliament must invest in communication. Mr. Speaker, communication is investing in a bank of goodwill. And you invest in this bank of goodwill in fair weather. What the wise man says, the white man says that you make your hay while the sun shines. In the good times, using communication, you invest in this bank of goodwill because there's a time you will be in a situation where you're not in goodwill with people. And that is when you start withdrawing from the bank of goodwill. Why this Parliament went into such attack is because we had not invested into this bank of goodwill. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the last point I would like to make is that even as we are onboarding our communication onto new platforms, let us be alive to the realities of the new world. Things called cyber crimes, cyber attacks, all these are realities that exist in the world that we want to import our thing into. So, Mr. Speaker, the recommendation I make is that even as we are thinking about onboarding to other proprietary existing platforms, like have been named here, Kenya should also think about making its own Facebook, its own TikTok, its own Twitter, so that we own this content and we also own the platforms that exist, because we know the danger that there is in putting our information out there in platforms that we do not own. Parliament is capable of developing its own digital platform and digital.
You can have an additional 1 minute. Yes, so that
Mr. Speaker, you are very kind, and I do appreciate this. The point I was making is that information is power. We are in what is being referred to as the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution shall be fueled by data. And when you generate data, today data becomes a currency. So the data that we generate with the content that we are putting on these new online platforms should be content that we are able to manage from the beginning to the end. And that is why I request that beyond just onboarding onto existing international, multinational, big tech platforms, Parliament should also consider building its own platforms that we can own so that we can secure our information away from the people who have bad intents against this institution. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
MP for Limuru, John Kiragu. Please give the mic to the Honorable John Kiragu. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this report on enhancing reporting on broadcasting, and please, I need your help here. My good friend Alice is very close to me. I rise to report to support this report on enhancing reporting of parliamentary business on online platforms. As I do so, Mr. Speaker, I make reference to the fact that the Constitution provides the public a right to the information or the proceedings that goes on in the National Assembly and also the Senate. As we are aware, at a time like this, we have been sharing the broadcasting between National Assembly and Senate in a shared platform through the Signet, but in limited area in Nairobi. But I know that there has been development, like my colleagues have said, and technology has changed. And since 2016, when we had a social media policy for this house, things have changed. Technology has changed. And it is about time that we realigned our social platforms in line with the technology that has so far developed. As my friends have mentioned, there has been TikTok, Facebook, the YouTube, and all these platforms have been used within the Parliament and outside, but it is about time that we reviewed as to how we have been utilized. The numbers don't show that we have been utilizing the platforms that we have. If you look at the numbers in the YouTube, you find, Mr. Speaker, that we have not been actively involved. But I want to acknowledge the support that our committee of broadcasting and library service that has received when we were discussing this report, particularly from the ICT committee and the Parliamentary Service Commission, the personnel from Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, who are contracted to cover the proceedings of this House. Their contribution really helped us to put up some specific recommendations. And these recommendations, Mr. Speaker, are directed to making sure that we align this parliament with other parliaments in the world, that we cannot afford to be left behind in matter of disseminating information to the public. And Mr. Speaker, we also noted that people know about what happens in Parliament by the covering they get, particularly on plenary sessions. But, Mr. Speaker, you know a lot happens within the committees, and they are not covered adequately. We know that the activities of members of Parliament are not only restricted within the premises of the Parliament, that each one of us has an office out there in our constituencies. And these constituencies also carry parliamentary duties, whether we are giving bursaries or providing services to our people. So we are providing guidelines to make sure that whatever happens on our constituencies, it is also covered. And for that reason, that's why we are calling for a review of the social media policy. But quickly, Mr. Speaker, we are saying that we need to review quickly on our social media policy within 6 months, that we need to review our website to make sure that we align it with the activities that we have. And this we are giving it some 3 months. We develop guidelines, packaging and of the content, and within 6 months, review parliamentary social media.
Limuru, proceed. I'm giving you an additional...
And that we can have a social policy to include provisions of publishing members of parliament information to make sure that within 6 months that we can adopt a reviewed report. Mr. Speaker, we can develop guidelines for the designation of one staff in our constituency among the existing staff to make sure that the content that comes from the constituency and it is transmitted to Parliament is one that is not fake, that it is traceable, and that we have somebody qualified to carry that responsibility. We can ensure that the Media Relations Department provides a structure for media coverage and verification. And this, Mr. Speaker, we think that we can also do it within a very short time. I want to say and emphasize what has been said. We must allocate resources to ensure that all the things that will be necessary to enhance the social media platforms are funded adequately. Mr. Speaker, you know, even with the gadgets that are here not all of them are working when we need them to work. And I think it's so important for us to make sure that resources are provided so that we can support the platforms that we have, and we make sure that as a country and as a parliament, that we cannot afford to be left behind by the rest of the other parliaments around the world. I thank you.
Well, there being no interest, I will call upon the mover to reply. Where is the chair for the...
I'm here, Speaker.
Where are you? Oh, yeah,
I am
way
here,
back
Speaker,
there.
and...
Honorable Nanok.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed now, and you reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to reply to this motion. But, Speaker, allow me to donate some of my time to one of my members here who wants to speak to the motion. Kindly, if you can allow that, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yes. I mean,
I give
it's just that we did not have any registered interest in here.
Mheshimiwa George Gachagua.
Proceed, Honorable Gachagua.
To me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion, Mr. Speaker, considering that our Constitution, Article 118, requires the Parliament to conduct its activities in the open. And I believe that this will promote transparency in all our deliberations. Mr. Speaker, the online platforms will enhance visibility of the works being done by the members of Parliament, inside Parliament, and in the committee meetings. Mr. Speaker, the online platforms will capture a lot of attention from many Kenyans, and I believe that once it is undertaken, a lot of Kenyans will be in a position to actually even comment on what we shall be doing here. It will also enhance public participation, because it has been realized that most Kenyans don't know maybe what goes on inside here. But through online platforms, I believe that we'll be in a position to let Kenyans know what we do here in Parliament, and many questions will be answered through these social platforms. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you still wish to donate some more minutes to any other colleague? Okay, proceed now, and mover do reply now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the onset, Speaker, I wish to register my appreciation and gratitude to the members of the House who have spoken in support of this motion, seeing how important this motion is to this House or to Parliament generally. Mr. Speaker, the members have pointed out the contribution that this motion can make in terms of improving the visibility of this House, the public participation enhancement that will be seen in the public if this House can adopt or will adopt this motion. And Mr. Speaker, some of the members, of course, one of the members who has contributed here today, of course, has cautioned us on the question of the cost of upgrading the online infrastructure in Parliament. And the same, of course, has also been rebutted by the importance of investing in this infrastructure. And Parliament of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is in a position and is able to plan for this online infrastructure in a staggered manner so as to achieve the intended goal. Mr. Speaker, the world of technology is moving very fast. This has been observed in communication, and therefore we cannot afford to be left behind, and therefore we have to move along with the current technological improvements as a parliament. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, online platform reporting, Mr. Speaker, will give us the platform to say our own story as parliament. And this is the gist of this report. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do not want to belabor the points that the members have made here in support of the motion, and therefore would ask that this House supports this motion so that we can move on with what needs to be done to help us improve our online reporting. I want to thank you, and I move.
The question will not be put today. The chair directs that we will find an appropriate time when the question is going to be put. For now, it's deferred. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, report on the consolidated fund services expenditures for the supplementary estimates 1 for the financial year 2024-2025, resumption of debate.
I don't see any interest. I'm looking at my screen here. Beatrice, is this an old request you made, or you intend to contribute on the, it's old? Okay, under the circumstances, we'll have to call on the mover to reply. Where is the mover? Is he in the house? Is the mover in the house? So then, next order. This is also now deferred to another date. The next order.
Order number 11, motion, public petition on funds spent contrary to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution. Resumption of debate.
This is also an old debate. It's a resumption now. And there's no interest except Beatrice Elachi. Are you not interested, or is it an old one? It's an old one, okay. Well, under the circumstances, I'll also call upon the mover to reply. Where is the mover? The mover is not in. So that business is deferred to another date, when at the appropriate date, and then the mover will reply and the question will be put. Next order, order number 12.
Order number 12, motion, implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by the House.
Is the chairperson of the Committee on Implementation in the House? Rafael Ojala.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the first report of the Committee on Implementation on the implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by the House, laid on the table of the House on 26th October 2023. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Implementation is established under Standing Order 209 of the National Assembly Standing Orders. The committee scrutinizes resolutions of the House, including adopted committee reports, petitions, and
undertakings given by the National Executive. The committee examines whether such decisions and undertakings have been implemented and whether such implementations has taken place within the minimum time necessary and satisfactory explanation for the delay in full implementation provided. Mr. Speaker, the mandate of the committee is further elucidated by Standing Order 201 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders, that provides that within 60 days of a resolution of the House or adoption of a report of a select committee, the relevant cabinet secretary under whose portfolio the implementation of the resolution falls shall provide a report to the appropriate committee of the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, in consonance with Article 153(4)(b) of the Constitution, requires Cabinet Secretary to provide Parliament with full and regular reports concerning matters under their control. That the committee plays a pivotal role in ensuring that the National Assembly resolves issues of concern to the people by holding the executive to account through the implementation of House resolutions. This ultimately ensures that the National Assembly executes its constitutional mandate effectively and efficiently, and that it does not act in vain. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the execution of its mandate, the committee wrote to various ministries, state corporations and agencies requesting for the implementation status of resolution petitions and adopted committee reports passed by this House. The committee received both oral and written submissions from the cabinet secretaries and accounting officers of the state corporations, providing the implementation status of the recommendations contained in the reports adopted by the House in the sittings held from February to April 2023 as follows. A, the report of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on Public Petition number 047 of 2021 regarding the suspension of the Teacher Professional Development Program, that is TPD. B, report by the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on Public Petition regarding the repeal of sections of the Universities Act 2012. C, the Special Fund Accounts Committee report on the examination of audited financial statements for financial years 2013-2014 to 2015-2016 for the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, for constituencies in Nairobi County. The Public Investments Committee report on the inquiry into the safety of ferries as observed in the audited accounts for financial year 2016-17 and a report by the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on its consideration of the petition by the Kenya Association of Retired Officers, CARO, on improved terms for pensioners in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, in addition, the committee undertook inspection visits to some projects and corporations to ascertain the progress made in implementing the the recommendation of the various reports. This report entails a compilation of the responses received and their status of implementation as at the time of the adoption of the report, committee observations and recommendations. Mr. Speaker, sir, in consideration of the implementation status of House resolutions pursuant to its mandate under Standing Order 209 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, the committee made the following general observations which have a direct impact on the implementation of House resolutions. A. Implementation of the majority of the House resolutions have budgetary implications for their effective implementation. For this reason, there is a need for appropriation of funds in subsequent financial years to ensure House resolutions are implemented as directed. However, in most instances, inadequate budgetary allocations is the major hindrance to effective implementation of the same by ministries, departments, and agencies. B, there was no adequate budget allocated to the ministries, departments, and agencies to implement some of the recommendations. And C, some of the recommendations were generalized and not specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, so as to facilitate smooth implementation of House resolutions. Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to address these challenges, the committee made the following general recommendations. That the accounting officers of MDS, that is ministry, departments, and other agencies, should factor resolutions with budgetary implications in the subsequent financial year budgets for effective implementation. That accounting officers of MDS should incorporate House resolutions in their work plans for effective and efficient delivery of the implementations. This should include timelines for achievement of specific deliverables and assignment of responsibility. And C, that the EACC should provide a status report of all pending investigations stated in this report within 60 days of the adoption of this report by the House. D, the National Treasury should ensure appropriations of funds for the implementation of House resolutions are done within one financial year following the adoption of a House resolution for the public to derive the intended benefits. Further, the National Assembly should allocate sufficient funds to the implementing agencies for effective implementation of reports passed by the House. And C, government agencies and departments are directed to implement House resolutions should endeavor to fit the resolutions in their work plans and deliver the same within the stipulated time frame. Failure to do so, sanctions should be imposed against the responsible officials. Mr. Speaker, sir, those observations and recommendations, if considered and implemented, will enhance accountability, effectiveness, transparency, efficiency, prudent management, commercial viability, and value for money in state corporations. Mr. Speaker, sir, having noted the proceedings of the Select Committee on implementation on the examination of the various reports I beg to move and urge the House to adopt this report.
You have to be seconded.
And I now request the Honorable Koimburi. See, I can't trace him. Mwalio and Honorable Mwalio to second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mwalio, proceed. Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Fair enough. I'll have to propose the question. Honorable members, I now propose a question that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on Implementation and its consideration of the first report on implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by this House, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, the 26th of October, 2023. The Honorable Ochieng, David.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the committee chaired by the Honorable Njala, who is my neighbor at home, for a good report, Mr. Speaker. The National Assembly, and indeed Parliament in this country, works through bills, resolutions, petitions. And to know how effective our role is, Mr. Speaker, to know that Parliament has teeth depends almost entirely on adherence to and implementation of the resolutions made by this House. Mr. Speaker, it is so disturbing, extremely so, that first of all, we take so long to make our resolutions. And even when we make them, Mr. Speaker, if you listen to the report that has been presented to this House this evening, and you check the history of resolutions from this House and the implementation, Mr. Speaker, including sometimes even private members' bills that become law, it's like we are begging. Like this House has no capacity to ensure that the resolutions of this House are implemented. There are many, but you can count on your fingers how many have been implemented to the end, Mr. Speaker. And so it will be upon this House, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that in future, be it a government department, be it a ministry, be it a SAGA, be it an MDA, if this House passes a resolution, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the motion, the order paper today, and of this week, and of next week, and of the previous week, Mr. Speaker, this House works through motions. And most of the time, these motions propose resolutions to ensure that the country moves in the right direction, Mr. Speaker. If the assembly of the people of this country make resolutions that are not implemented, Mr. Speaker, then you're working in vain. And so I believe that we must get away as a House to ensure that our resolutions are implemented and that failure to implement our resolutions has sanctions to it. You've had Chair present his report, and there are myriad things that this House resolves every day. This afternoon, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, we had a case where a gentleman, an MCA, has been abducted. No one knows where he is. The police don't know. The committee concerned, Parliament doesn't know. And we've had cases like this so many times. When they come, they brought to the House, we make resolutions, but nothing happens. And so this House has become like a talk shop. We talk and talk, and then talk some more. Then we come back, the same issues raised in the next session.
Proceed. Give him an additional 2-3 minutes, as many as he
The
wants.
same issue is brought in the following Parliament. Again, we talk. And it's because we didn't give our committees, or even if we've given them, our committees are not biting with the teeth that the Constitution gives them. Our committee are not using the teeth.
Yeah. What's the point of order, the Honorable MP for the Greater South?
Mr. Speaker, as you would know, I would be very hesitant to interrupt the honorable member for Ugenya when he's debating, because you know the quality of his debate. And you can even tell from his contribution how important this motion is to our republic, even from the points that he's raising. Mr. Speaker, we are on agenda number 11, which is the motion on public petitions on funds spent contrary to the provisions of Article 22. A very important, we are on the reports on petitions, Mr. Speaker, a very important agenda before this House. And Mr. Speaker, I know from where you sit, the seat is blind, but from where we are sitting, I can tell you that we are running into quorum hitches. As we speak now, if you look around the House, Mr. Speaker, I would like to bring to your attention that we actually do not have quorum when we are debating such an important matter that is before this House, Mr. Speaker. And again, I want to apologize because I'm always very hesitant to be on my feet when the honorable member for Ugenya is on his feet because of the substance that he brings to this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Under these circumstances, it is crystal clear that we do not have a quorum. I direct that we ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes and also direct the whips to do their job of whipping members of Parliament to the House. The quorum bell is being rung. It's only the whips who are allowed to go out there and to whip members of Parliament.
Over this afternoon is in progress, and that is the quorum hitch has been raised by the Honorable Member John Kiarie, who stood on a point of order to alert the Speaker that the House, as the debate is on, does not have the required quorum during the proceeding of the House, and this is pursuant to the House Standing Order number 35. The Standing Order number 35 indicates that if at any time after the chair is taken or when the House is in committee or a member objects that there is not a quorum present, the Speaker or the chairperson shall count the members in the House or the committee as the case may be. And in this case, it is the House. Standing Order 35, paragraph 2, indicates that if on the count under paragraph 1, that is if a point has been raised that there is no quorum and there is a count, a quorum does not appear to be present, the Speaker shall cause the division bell to be rung as on a division, or if no quorum is present at the expiration of the 10 minutes. Remember, what we have seen right now is that the Honorable Member Farah Maalim, who sits in the Speaker's panel, and currently the Speaker for this particular time, has directed that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes, also directing the whips in the House to do their role or to undertake their role of whipping members who may be within the precincts of Parliament but not inside the chambers to do right that. Also, the Speaker directed that no member other than the whips should walk out of the chamber. Of course, remember the House is looking for members to be inside the chamber, so if at any point any other member who is inside the chamber walks out other than the whips, then that would jeopardize the whole part of looking for members to correct for the House to proceed with its business. At the expiration of the 10 minutes, if the Speaker is in the chair, the Speaker shall adjourn the House until the next sitting without question put. So as the 10-minute quorum bell during the proceeding of the House continues, we hope that the quorum will be achieved. If not, then the House shall adjourn until the next sitting. And before the quorum, the lack of quorum in the House was raised by the Honorable Member. The member for Ugenya, David Ochieng, was on the floor of the House. That is Honorable Sabina Chege. Of course, she's just walked into the chambers. Before that quorum hitch was raised by the Honorable Member John Kerie, the member for Ugenya, Honorable David Ochieng, was on the floor of the House. At this point, the business that was being transacted was consideration of the motion on the implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by the House. The quorum bell is still on. Remember, this is a quorum hitch during the proceeding of the House business, and pursuant to the House Standing Order number 35, then a member could raise on a point of order to indicate that there is no quorum inside the House, and that is what exactly has happened. But before that quorum bell or that quorum hitch, business that was on the floor was that members were considering the implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by the House. This is a motion that was moved by the chairperson, Committee on Implementation, that is Honorable Raphael Wanjala. This is with regards to a report that was laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 26th October, the year 2024. And members had begun considering or debating or weighing in on this particular motion, with the member for Ugenya, Honorable David Ochieng, taking the floor and indicating that the resolutions of the House ought to be implemented, that there are a number of reports and even concerns that are discussed by the House, and resolutions are usually made, but implementation, as he indicated, said some of them are not implemented, and that then begs the question of the whole point of making resolutions for various concerns, whether it is about ministries or departments, agencies, that is either government agencies, government departments, ministries, and various other institutions that issues are brought before the floor of the House, and the House makes such resolutions but end up not being implemented. This is a report that was moved by the chairperson of the Committee on Implementation, that is Honorable Raphael Wanjala. As you can see, he is right there in front of the dispatch area with other members. Currently is a quorum bell that is underway. Pursuant to House Standing Order number 35, if during the proceedings of the House, when the business is in progress and the House lacks quorum, that is Honorable Farah Maalim, the Speaker. If there is no quorum, then the House will be adjourned. Allow me to hand you over back to the proceedings of the House.
Honorable members, there being no requisite quorum, and the time being 5:38 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 24th of September, 2024, the year 2024, at 2:30 p.m.
They call me for East. Oh, see, I'm up in the club, they play my music. religiously, but I'm still thinking about you. All this wild life don't mean I'm wild to. Yeah, you hope you know that all my sins are for you. I'll be one day for girls. I'm hoping that you know my sins are for you. I'm living double lives for only you, my baby. All my sins are for you. I gave it up, my intentions. They only changed because you joined my life. But you know I see it in my own face when I'm singing, oh, but you're number one.